Oh! Damn, I sound like an alert siren. Yeah, and that's with me being like 2 feet away from my microphone. That's it, definitely a microphone check. Then, of course, there's always a pre-recorded one. I am freaking hot. It's like the sun's down, and I don't think we've dipped below 100 yet. I'll have to look that up real quick. No, I do not want to search zucchini. I see the weather. Okay, it's down to 95. 95 and cloudy. I'm not sure if we've actually had rain. The weather apps keep saying that we have. I'll find dust spots in my car, but that's about it. And I may or may not be drinking. Coffee. Yeah, coffee. Instant. It's actually a hydration coffee to help me stay hydrated. But me, I added butterscotch moonshine. So yeah. I have to say that when I started doing the fairy tales on Friday nights, I was doing it drunk. So my snark was considerably more. But yeah. Well, originally it was doing it as pretty much like it was a drunk uncle telling stories to his niece and nephew when their parents decided to have a date night. Needless to say, it's changed in the 3 years that I've been doing this. I will say butterscotch schnapps is better than butterscotch moonshine. And I'm one of the weird people who actually likes butterscotch. Enough so that I will melt candy in my regular coffee in hot weather. Well, when I'm drinking hot coffee, I will melt butterscotches into it. That's typically the time of year where I would spend my extra money, which I don't currently have, on buying butterscotch sodas because this is the only freaking time of the year that the Witch's Brew comes out. I'd say, in the words of Willy Wonka, candy's dandy, but liquor is quicker. But anyway, it is Friday night, and that means it's fairy tales. And I'm still somewhat amazed that I've been doing this for a little over 3 years. So, because I first did this August 10th of 2021. I enjoyed it enough that I actually bought the laptop that I'm using now. And now the laptop I'm using now doesn't handle half the shit I want to do. It was great then. In fact, the laptop that I did have started acting up. My wife sent me her Elite book, and I ended up wearing it down within a month. And then I got a new job and thought, you know, I got a job. I can afford a new computer. So I bought this laptop that I'm currently using. And that's been 3 years ago. And now I'm trying to get money for a tower, so I can actually game stream as well as do everything else. And notice that my tip jar, yeah, the one down there, I made it transparent. And it actually has the logo on both sides of it. It's one of those things that I got a picture, took the outline, made it completely transparent, put a reversed version of the image on the other side of it, and then put the regular version of the image on this side of it, and then edited in the coins. Because I like making props. I am kind of working on the Needle for Dusk. I don't know if I'll get it done in time. Because it's an interesting build, and in all honesty, I'm not sure if I have a box big enough to ship it in. I'm going to do it in segments anyway, but I haven't taken pictures of the current version right now, so I'll get to that when I get to that. Right now I'm waiting for glue of the eye to finish curing out. Then I can actually start working on the blade, or shaft, or whatever it is. It's a needle, it's just one long extruded piece of metal, but I'm doing PVC. But yeah, it should hopefully look somewhat decent. Still gotta get the pieces done, get them painted, do the cloth sleeve, that's the handle on her model, because I'm basing it off of, let's see if I can pull up that picture, image, don't know where to save that thing. Actually, I think it's in my screenshots still. Pictures, screenshots. So I'm loosely basing my build off of this picture. And right now, I just have the needle, or the eye part of it done. So I'm going to try to get it done. I don't think I'll have it ready by the con. It just depends on how much time I can get myself focused on it. But it'll be cool when I get it done. Though her scaling on this picture doesn't quite match up what I built. But anyway, we're here for fairy tales tonight. And my alerts are on. I do have them relatively confined to a certain space. And I do have both books up in my title now, so I'm doing good on that one. But let's go ahead and jump over to the library, which will be here. Man, I'm sitting tall. Need to fix that. I do have my chibi and everything else turned on. My ear switches, my head pats, my hats. I don't have head pats. I have ear switches. And even then, I cannot get it locked into where it's supposed to be. But we will get to that if and when I ever figure out what I'm actually doing. I don't have any updates on the new model yet. Why is my mouth not moving? I'm talking too fast for my camera to pick it up. I really need to find a way to adjust that. But anyway, that's for another day, because today is Fairy Tales. And this first story, I absolutely love, because it makes fun of princesses so hard. I have nothing against princesses. I'd like to have something against a princess, but that's why this is an 18+ stream. There's a reason that I have my VODs listed as not for kids. Because I have been censoring myself on the edits. I've been having to go back and redo those. And like I stop the stream around 11, then I'm usually up until 4 doing the editing. That's why I try to stick it to the weekends, because if I had a job, I would not be able to do it. I have to shift to the Friday and Saturday instead of Thursday and Friday. Anyway, we're already 6 minutes behind schedule, which is absolutely typical for a Friday. So we will start off with our first fairy tale for this wonderful Friday night. The Swineherd. There was once a poor prince. He possessed a kingdom which, though small, was yet large enough for him to marry on, and he wished to be married. Now it was certainly a little audacious of him to venture to say to the emperor's daughter, "Will you marry me?" But he did venture to say so, for his name was known far and wide. There were hundreds of princesses who would gladly have said yes, but would she do the same? We shall see. On the grave of the prince's father grew a rose tree, a very beautiful rose tree. It only bloomed every 5 years, and then bore but a single rose, but oh, such a rose! Its scent was so sweet that when you smelt it, you forgot all your cares and troubles. And he might also have a nightingale which would sing if all the beautiful melodies in the world were shut up in its little throat. The rose and this nightingale the princess was to have, and so they were both put into silver caskets and sent to her. The emperor had them brought to him in the great hall where the princess was playing. Here comes the Duke a-riding with her ladies-in-waiting. And when she caught sight of the big caskets which contained the presents, she clapped her hands with joy. "Oh, if only it were a little pussycat," she said. But the rose tree with the beautiful rose came out. "But how prettily it is made," said all the ladies-in-waiting. "It's more than pretty," said the emperor. "It's charming." But the princess felt it, and then almost began to cry. "Papa," she said, "it's not artificial. It is real." Said all the ladies-in-waiting. "It is real." "Let us see first what is in the other casket before we begin to be angry," thought the emperor. And there came out the nightingale. It sang so beautifully that I could scarcely utter a cross word against it. "Superb, charmant," said the ladies-in-waiting, for they all chattered in French, each one worse than the other. "How much the bird reminds me of the musical snuff-box of the late Empress," said an old courtier. "Ah, yes, it is the same tone, the same execution." "Yes," said the Emperor, and then he wept like a little child. "I hope this, at least, is not real?" asked the princess. "Yes, it is a real bird," said those who had brought it. "Then let it fly away," said the princess, and she would not, on any account, allow the prince to come. But he was nothing daunted. He dirted his face, drew his cap well over his face, and knocked on the door. "Good day, Emperor," he said. "Can I get a place here as a servant in the castle?" "Why, yes," said the Emperor. "But there are so many who ask for a place that I don't know whether you will be one for you. But still, I will think of you. Stay, it has just occurred to me that I want someone to look after the swine, for I have so many of them." And the prince got the situation of Imperial Swineherd. He had a wretched little room close to the pigsties. Here he had to stay, but the whole day he sat working, and when evening was come, he made a pretty little pot. All round it were little bells, and when the pot boiled, they jingled most beautifully, and played the old tune, "Where is Augustus dear? Alas, he's not here, here, here." But the most wonderful thing was that when one held one's finger to the steam in the pot, then at once one could smell what dinner was ready in any fireplace in the town. That was indeed something quite different from the rose. Now the princess came walking past with all her ladies-in-waiting, and when she heard the tune, she stood still, and her face beamed with joy, for she could also play "Where is Augustus dear?" It was the only time she knew, and that she could play with one finger. "Why, that is what I play," she said. "He must be a most accomplished swineherd. Listen, go down and ask him what the instrument costs." And one of the ladies-in-waiting had to go down, and she put on wooden clogs. "For what will you take the pots?" asked the lady-in-waiting. "I will have 10 kisses from the princess," answered the swineherd. "Heaven forbid," said the lady-in-waiting. "Yes, and I will sell it for nothing less," replied the swineherd. "Well, what does he say?" asked the princess. "I really hardly like to tell you," answered the lady-in-waiting. "Oh, then you can whisper to me." "He is disobliging," said the princess, and went away. But he had only gone a few steps when the bell was rang out so prettily. "Where is Augustus dear? Alas, he's not here, here, here." "Listen," said the princess. "Ask him whether he will take kisses from my ladies-in-waiting." "Oh, thank you," said Swineherd. 10 kisses from the princess, or else I keep my pot." "That is very tiresome," said the princess, "but you must put yourselves in front of me, so that no one can see me." And the ladies-in-waiting placed themselves in front, and then spread out their dresses. So the swineherd got his 10 kisses, and she got the pot. Oh, what happiness that was! The whole night and the whole day the pot was made to boil, and there was not a fireplace in the whole town where they did not know what was being cooked, whether it was at the chancellor's or at the shoemaker's. The ladies-in-waiting danced and clapped their hands. "We know who's going to have soup and pancakes. We know who is going to have porridge and sausages. Isn't this interesting? Yes, very interesting, said the First Lady in Waiting. But don't say anything about it, for I'm the Emperor's daughter. Oh, no, of course we won't, said everyone. The swineherd, that is to say the prince, though they did not know anything but a true swineherd, let no day pass without making something. One day he made a little rattle, which, when it was turned around, played all the waltzes, gallops, and polkas which had ever been known since the world began. That is superb, said the princess as she passed by. I've never heard a more beautiful composition. Listen, go down and ask him what this instrument costs, but I won't kiss him again. He wants 100 kisses from the princess, said the lady in waiting who had gone down to ask. I believe he is mad, said the princess, and then she went on, but she had only gone a few steps when she stopped. One ought to encourage art, she said. I am the Emperor's daughter. Tell him he shall have, as before, 10 kisses. The rest he can take from my ladies in waiting. But we don't at all like being kissed by him, said the ladies in waiting. That's nonsense, said the princess. If I can kiss him, you can too. Besides, remember that I gave you board and lodging. Bitch. So the ladies in waiting had to go down to him again. 100 from the kisses from the princess, he said, or each keeps his own. Put yourselves in front of us, she said then. So all the ladies in waiting put themselves in front, and he began to kiss the princess. What can that common motion be by the pigsties? Asked the Emperor, who was standing on the balcony. He rubbed his eyes and put on his spectacles. Why, those are the ladies in waiting playing their games. I must go down to them. So he took off his shoes, which were shoes, though he had trodden them down into slippers. What a hurry he was in, to be sure. As soon as he came into the yard, he walked very softly, and the ladies in waiting were so busy counting the kisses and seeing fair play that they never noticed the Emperor, and he stood on tiptoe. What is that? He said when he saw the kissing, and then he threw one of his slippers at the heads, just as the swineherd was taking his 86th kiss. Be off with you, said the Emperor, for he was angry. And the princess and the swineherd were driven out of the empire. And then she stood still and wept. The swineherd was scolding, and the rain was streaming down. Alas, what an unhappy creature I am, sobbed the princess. If only I'd taken the beautiful prince. Alas, how unfortunate I am. And the swineherd went behind a tree, washed the dirt from his face, threw away his old clothes, and then stepped forward in his splendid dress, looking so beautiful that the princess was obliged to curtsy. I now come to this. I despise you, he said. You would have nothing to do with a noble prince. You did not understand the rose or the nightingale, but you would kiss a swineherd for the sake of a toy. This is what you get for it. And he went into his kingdom and shut the door on her face. And she had to stay outside singing. Where's my Augustus, dear? Alas, he's not here, here. He's got a point. Honestly, I love seeing spoiled princesses get punished. If you know a spoiled princess, by all means, send her my way. I will enjoy punishing her. Okay. I should not have said that. I should not have said that. That will be on the stream, but not in the edited version. If you go to the streaming storytelling or streaming fairy tales, then you'll get to hear all of my candid commentary that I do on my live streams. If you go to the playlist, you will only hear the story. Without my colorful insight. Well, this next story, however, is a very familiar one. I think it was technically Hans Christian Andersen at one time, but it's another one that's been told by several people. And it is very informative. Especially if you want to learn how to live versus on a princess. That's kind of awkward, but... because this one is... How to Tell a True Princess. There was once upon a time a prince who wanted to marry a princess, but she must be a true princess. So he traveled through the whole world to find one, but there was always something against each. There were plenty of princesses, but he could not find one that he would consider a true princess. In every case, there was some little defect which showed a genuine article was not yet to be found. So he came home again in very low spirits, for he had wanted very much to have a true princess. One night there was a dreadful storm. It thundered and lightened, and the rain streamed down in torrents. It was fearful. There was a knocking heard at the palace gate, and the old king went to open it. There stood a princess outside the gate, but oh, and what a sad plight she was from the rain and the storm. The water was running down from her hair, and her dress into points of her shoes, and out of the heels again. And yet, she said that she was a true princess. We shall soon find that out, thought the old queen. But she said nothing, and went into the sleeping room, took off all the bedclothes, and laid a pea on the bottom of the bed. Then she put 20 mattresses on top of the pea, and 20 eider-down quilts on the top of the mattresses. And this was the bed in which the princess was to sleep. The next morning she asked how the princess had slept. "Oh, very badly," said the princess. "I scarcely closed my eyes all night. I'm sure that I don't know what was in the bed. I laid on something hard that my whole body's black and blue. It is dreadful." Now they perceived that she was a true princess, because she had felt a pea through 20 mattresses and 20 eider-down quilts. None but a true princess could be so sensitive. So the prince married her, for now he knew that at last he had got hold of a true princess, and the pea was put into the royal museum, where it is still to be seen to this day, provided no one has stolen it. And this is a true story. Can you imagine being that sensitive? I can't. Who wants to get bruised by a pea? I mean, what kind of fun would that person be? Oh, not that I like rough stuff. Though this next story sounds like it starts off as a joke. And I could probably read it like one if I tried to. But our next wondrous story for this Friday night of fairy tales, the Blue Mountains. There was once a Scotsman, an Englishman, and an Irishman serving in the army together, who took it into their heads to run away at the first opportunity that they could get. The chance came, and they took it. They went on traveling for 2 days through a great forest without food or drink, and without coming across a single house. And every night they had to climb up into the trees through fear of wild beasts that were in the wood. On the second morning, the Scotsman saw from the top of the tree a great castle far away. He said to himself that he would certainly die if he stayed in the forest without anything to eat but roots and grass, which would not keep him alive for very long. As soon as then got down from the tree, he set off towards the castle, without so much as telling his companions that he had seen it at all. Perhaps it was the hunger, and they wanted the suffering to change their nature so much that one did not care what came of the other, if he could save himself. He traveled on most of the day, so that it was quite late when he reached the castle, and, to his great disappointment, found nothing but closed doors, no smoke rising from the chimneys. He thought there was nothing for it but to die after all, and had laid down beside the wall, when he heard a window being opened right above him. At this he looked up, and saw the most beautiful woman he had ever set his eyes upon. "Oh, it is fortune that has sent me to you," he said. "It is indeed," she said. "What are you in need of, or what has sent you here?" "Necessity," he said. "I'm dying for want of food and drink." "Come inside then," she said. "There are plenty of both here." Accordingly, he went in to where she was, and she opened a large room for him, where he saw a number of men lying asleep. Then she set food before him, and after that showed him to a room where the others were. He lay down on one of the beds and fell sound asleep. Now we must go back to the two that he left behind in the wood. When nightfall and the time of the wild beasts had come upon these, the Englishman happened to climb up to the very same tree on which the Scotsman had got sight of the castle, and as soon as day began to dawn, the Englishman looked to 4 quarters of heaven, and what did he see but the castle too? Off he went without saying a word to the Irishman, and everything happened to him, just as it had done the Scotsman. The poor Irishman was now alone all himself, and he did not know where the others had gone off to, so he stayed just where he was, very sad and miserable. When night came, he climbed up into the same tree as the Englishman had done on the night before. As soon as day came, he also saw the castle, and set out towards it. But when he reached it, he could see no signs of fire or living being without it. Before long, however, he heard the window open above his head, and looked up, and beheld the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He asked if she could give him food and drink, and she answered kindly and heartily that she could, if only he would come inside. This he did very willingly, and she set before him food and drink that he had never seen before. In the room there was a bed, with diamond rings hanging at every loop on the curtains, and everything that was in the room besides astonished him so much that he actually forgot that he was hungry. When she saw that he was not eating at all, she asked him what he wanted yet, to which he replied that he would either eat nor drink till he knew who she was, or where she came from, or who had put her here. "I shall tell you that," she said. I am an enchanted princess, and my father has promised that the man who releases me from my spell shall have a third of his kingdom while he is alive, and the whole of it after he is dead, and marry me as well. If I ever saw a man look like me to do this, you are the one. I have been here for 16 years now, and no one has ever come to the castle or has asked me who I was, except for yourself. Every other man that has come, so long as I have been here, lies asleep in the big room down there. Tell me then, said the Irishman, what is the spell that has been laid upon you, and how can you be freed from it? There is a little room there, said the princess, and if I could get a man to stay in it from 10 o'clock till midnight for 3 nights on end, I should be freed from the spell. Well, I'm the man for you then, he said. I'll take a hand on it. Thereupon she brought him a pipe and tobacco, and he went into the room. But before long he heard a hammering and knocking on the outside of the door, and was told to open it. I won't, he said. The next morning the door came flying in, and those outside along with it. They knocked him down and kicked him and knelt on his body till he came to midnight. But as soon as the cock crowed, they all disappeared. The Irishman was little more than alive by this time. As soon as daylight appeared, the princess came and found him lying full length on the floor, unable to speak a word. She took a bottle and rubbed him from head to foot with something from it, and thereupon he was as sound as ever. But after what he had got that night, he was very unwilling to try a second time. The princess, however, entreated him to stay, saying that the next night would not be so bad, and in the end he gave in, and he stayed. When it was nearing midnight, he heard them ordering him to open the door, and there were 3 of them for every one that had been there the previous evening. He did not make the slightest movement to go out to them, or to open the door, but before long they broke it up, and went on top of him. They laid hold of him and kept throwing him between them up until the ceiling, and jumping above him until the cock crowed, and then they all disappeared. When day came, the princess went to the room to see if he was still alive, and taking the bottle, put it up his nostrils, which soon brought him to himself. First thing he said then was that he might be a fool to go on getting himself killed for anyone he ever saw, and was determined to be off and stay there no longer. When the princess learned his intention, she entreated him to stay, reminding him that another night would free her from the spell. Besides, she said, if there is a single spark of life in you when the day comes, the stuff that is in this bottle will make you as sound as you ever were. I want some of that. With all this, the Irishman decided to stay. But that night, there were 3 at him for every one that had been there the 2 nights before. It looked very unlikely that he would be alive in the morning after all he got. When morning dawned, the princess came to see if he was still alive, and she found him lying on the floor, as if dead. She tried to see if there was breath in him, but could not quite make it out. Then she put her hand on his pulse and found a faint movement in it. Accordingly, she poured what was in the bottle on him, and before long he rose up on his feet, and was as well as ever. So that business was finished, and the princess was freed from the spell. The princess then told the Irishman that she must go away for the present, but would return in a few days in a carriage drawn by 4 gray horses. He told her, "Be easy, and do not speak like that to him. I've paid dear for you the last 3 nights," he said. "If I depart with you now," but in the twinkling of an eye, she had disappeared. He did not know what to do with himself when he thought that she was gone, but before she went she had given him a little rod, with which he could, when he pleased, waken the men that had been sleeping there. Some of them for 16 years. After being thus left alone, he went in and stretched himself on 3 chairs that were in the room. One does he see coming in the door but a fair-haired lad. "Where did you come from, my lad?" said the Irishman. "I came to make your food ready for you," he said. "Well, who told you to do that?" said the Irishman. "My mistress," said the lad. "The princess that was under the spell is now free." By this the Irishman knew that she had sent the lad here to wait on him. The lad also told him that his mistress wished him to be ready the next morning by 9 o'clock, when she would come for him with a carriage, as she had promised. He was greatly pleased at this, and next morning, when the time was drawing near, he went out to the garden. But the little fair-haired lad took out a big pin out of his pocket and stuck it in the back of the Irishman's coat without him noticing it, whereupon he fell sound asleep. Before long, the princess came with a carriage and 4 horses, and asked the lad whether his master was awake. He said that he wasn't. "It is bad for him," she said, "when the night is not long enough for him to sleep. Tell him that if he doesn't meet me at this time tomorrow, it is not likely that he will ever see me again in his life." As soon as she was gone, the fair-haired lad took the pin out of his master's coat, and he instantly awoke. The first word he said was, "Have you seen her?" "Yes," he said, "and she bade me to tell you that if you don't meet her at 9 o'clock tomorrow, you will never see her again." He was very sorry when he heard this, and could not understand why he should have fallen asleep when he knew that she was just coming. He decided, however, to go to bed early that night in order to rise in time the next morning, and so he did. When he was getting near 9 o'clock, he went out to the garden to wait till she came, and the fair-haired lad along with him. But as soon as the lad got his chance, he stuck the pin in his master's coat again, and he fell asleep as before. Precisely at 9 o'clock came the princess in the carriage with the 4 horses, and asked the lad if his master had got up yet. But he said, "No, he's still asleep, just as he was the day before." "Dear, dear," said the princess, "I'm sorry for him. Was the sleep he had last night not enough for him? Tell him that he will never see me here again. Here's a sword that you will give him in my name, and my blessing along with it." With this, she went off, and as soon as she had gone, the lad took the pin out of his master's coat. He woke instantly, and the first word he said was, "Have you seen her?" And the lad said that he had, and there was a sword she had left for him. The Irishman was ready to kill the lad of fear vexation. But when he gave a glance over his shoulder, not a trace of the fair-haired lad was left. Thus, being left all alone, he thought of going to the room where all the men were lying asleep. And there among them, he found his 2 comrades who had deserted along with him. Then he remembered that the princess had told him that he only had to touch them with a rod she had given him, and they would all awake. And the first he touched were his own comrades. They started at their feet at once, and gave them as much gold and silver as they could carry, and they went away. There was plenty to do before he got all the others awakened, for the 2 doors of the castle were crowded with them all day long. The loss of the princess, however, kept raking his mind all day and night, till finally he thought he would go about to the world to see if he could find anyone to give him any news of her. So he took the best horse in the stable and set out. 3 years he spent traveling through forests and wildernesses, but could find no one able to tell him anything of the princess. At last he fell into a great despair that he thought he would put an end to his own life, for this was purposely laid hold of the sword that she had given him by the hands of the fair-haired lad. But on drawing it from the sheath, he noticed that there was some writing on the side of the blade. He looked at it and read there, "You will find me in the Blue Mountains." This made him take heart again, He gave up the idea of killing himself, thinking that he would go on in hope of meeting someone who could at least tell him where the Blue Mountains were. After he had gone a long way without thinking where he was going, he saw at last a light far away and made straight for it. On reaching it, he found it became a little house, and as soon as the man inside heard the noise of a horse's feet, he came out to see who was there. Seeing a stranger on horseback, he asked what brought him there and where he was going.
"I have lived here," he said, "for 300 years, and all that time I have not seen a single human being but myself."
"I've been going about for the past 3 years," said the Irishman, "to see if I could find anyone who can tell me where the Blue Mountain is."
"Well, come in," said the old man, "and stay with me all night. I have a book which contains a history of the world, which I shall soon go through tonight, and I'll see if there is such a place as the Blue Mountains in it, and we shall find it."
The Irishman stayed there all night, and as soon as morning came, rose to go. The old man said he had not gone to sleep all night for going through the book, but there was not a word about the Blue Mountains in it.
"But I'll tell you what," he said. "If there is such a place on earth at all, I have a brother who lives 900 miles from here, and he is sure to know where they are, if anyone in the world does."
The Irishman answered that he could never go those 900 miles, for his horse was giving already.
"That doesn't matter," said the old man. "I can do better than that. I only have to blow my whistle, and you will be at my brother's house before nightfall."
So he blew the whistle, and the Irishman did not know where on earth he was until he found himself at the other man's door. He also told him that it was 300 years since he had seen anyone, and asked him where he was going. "I'm going to see if I can find anyone that can tell me where the Blue Mountains are," he said.
"If you stay with me tonight," said the old man, "I have a book of the history of the world, and I shall know where they are before daylight, if there is such a place."
He stayed there all night, but there was not a word in the book about the Blue Mountains. Seeing that there was rather cast down, the old man told him that he had a brother 900 miles away, and that if information could be got about anyone, it would be from him.
"I will enable you," he said, "to reach the place before he leaves by night."
And he blew his whistle, and the Irishman landed at the brother's house before nightfall. And the old man saw him, and said that he had not seen a single man for 300 years, and was very much surprised that anyone would come to him now.
"What are you going to?"
he said. "I'm going about asking about the Blue Mountains," said the Irishman.
"The Blue Mountains?"
said the old man. "Yes," said the Irishman.
"I never heard the name before, but if they do exist, I shall find them out. I am the master of all the birds in the world, and have only to blow my whistle, and everyone will come to me. I shall then ask each of them to tell me where it came from, and if there is any way of finding out where the Blue Mountains, that is."
So he blew his whistle, and when it blew, then all the birds in the world began to gather. The old man questioned each of them as to where they had come from, but there was not one of them that had come from the Blue Mountains. After he had each one, however, he missed a big eagle that was wanting, and wondered that it had not come. Soon afterward, he saw something big coming towards him, darkening the sky. It kept coming closer and growing bigger. And what was this after all but the eagle? When she arrived, the old man scolded her and asked her what had kept her so long behind.
"I couldn't help it," she said. "I had more than 20 times further to come than any bird that has come here today." "Where have you come from, then?" said the old man. "From the Blue Mountains," she said.
"Indeed," said the old man.
And what are they doing there?
They're making ready this very day,
said the eagle.
for the marriage of the daughter of the king of the Blue Mountains. For 3 years now, she has refused to marry anyone whatsoever, until she should give up all hope of the man coming to release her from her spell. Now she has to wait no longer, for 3 years is the time that she agreed with her father to remain without marrying.
The Irishman knew that it was for himself that she had been waiting so long, but he was unable to make any better of it, for he had no hope of reaching the Blue Mountains all his life. The old man noticed how sad he grew, and asked the eagle what she could take for carrying this man on her back to the Blue Mountains.
I must have 80 cattle killed, she said, and cut up into quarters, and every time I look over my shoulder, he must throw one of them into my mouth.
Cow me. As soon as the Irishman and the old man heard her demand, they went out hunting. Before evening they had killed 80 cattle. They made quarters of them, as the eagle told them, and then the old man asked her to lie down till they could get it all heaped up on her back. First of all, though, they had to get a ladder of 14 steps to enable them to get onto the eagle's back. Then they piled up the meat as well as they could. Then the old man told the Irishman to mount, and to remember to throw a quarter of beef to her every time she looked around. He went up, and the old man gave the eagle the word to be off, which she instantly obeyed, and every time she turned her head, the Irishman threw a quarter of beef into her mouth. As they came near the borders of the kingdom of the Blue Mountains, however, the beef was done, and when the eagle looked over her shoulder, what was the Irishman showing but stone between her tails and neck? At this she turned a complete somersault and threw the Irishman off into the sea, where he fell into the bay that was right at the foot of the king's palace. Fortunately, the points of his toes just touched bottom, and he managed to get ashore. When he went up into the town, all the streets were gleaming with light, and the wedding of the princess was just about to begin. He went into the first house he came to, and this happened to be the house of the king's henwife. He asked the old woman what was causing all the noise and lightened him.
Ah, the princess, she said. She is going to be married tonight against her will, for she has been expecting every day a man who freed her from the spell would come.
Here's a guinea for you, he said. Go and bring her here. The old woman went, and soon returned, along with the princess. She and the Irishman recognized each other and were married, and had a great wedding that lasted for a year and a day. Yes, well. Yes. If you're going to be flying with an eagle, you must be the wingman who provides snacks. It's got to be a big eagle if it's a quarter of a cow every so and so. And Guilty comes in for second. And it makes perfect sense. It's like, if you're going on a long trip, whoever's passenger has to feed the driver. That's just unspoken rule of the road, and apparently the air. You've got a burrito and you're not afraid to use it? I could have used a burrito. I don't think I'd want to eat anything hot right now. Let's see. I wonder what the temperature's down to. Let's see. It has got... Oh, it is down to 89. Huzzah. Burrito time. Oh. What's really bad is I think the ads are about to start too.
Burrito time, burrito time, burrito time.
I haven't got notices about the ad starting yet. But it's been an hour. They're going to start soon here anyway. Oh, it's got less than 2 minutes before the ad start. So by all means, get a drink, eat some burrito. Oh, there go the ads. Ouch. At least I got to read one of my favorite ones about a prince making fun of a princess. Yeah, I know. So you and 2 other people are actually subscribers. I think you and Squall are both subscribers. Yeah, I don't have many subscribers. I've only got 3 right now. But at least I've finally gotten enough that I can pay the internet bill for this month. I think. Should be close now. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I only get enough to actually get paid by Twitch maybe every 4 or 5 months. Except in September when we do the subathons and whatnot. Which I don't have any plans for a subathon yet. I don't know what the hell I'd do. Because, you know, my subathon last year, because it was, you know, September. Well, at least Twitch raised the prices, then they put it back to normal prices for September. But I'll start running promo things for that next month. Ads are almost over. I don't think the viewer counter thing stays accurate. Right now it says there's only 1 person here. I don't think you 2 would have left. I know Kel running all my ads are swamping up the chat messages though. Anyway, it looks like we're back. Check to see if my audio is doing, because I've been hearing music. Let me go to library sounds. What's going on? Oh! It's not playing at all. That could be why I wasn't hearing anything. And no, I don't want the ad. Okay. Now the background audio that I use is only 2 hours long. But I thought I had it set to refresh itself every time I started. That means I have to be on this window for 2 hours before it would be over. But anyway. We've only done 1 hour, so we've got some story time. Hopefully you all get hydrated in this little time. I would say to use the sound alert to let me know if you're ready. Let's see, how long is this one? Tinder-Box. It's been a lot of short stories tonight. This one's 10 pages, so might get at least 2 more stories for tonight. We get 2 story minimum. Well, that's kind of what the route with the Sherlock Holmes have been. I've only been able to get through 2 stories a night on those. But anyway, our next story for this wonderful Friday night of fairy tales. The Tinder-Box. A soldier came marching along the high road, left, right. He had his knapsack on his back and a sword by his side, for he had been to the wars and was now returning home. An old witch met him on the road, and she was very ugly to look at, and her underlip hung down to her breast.
"Good evening, soldier," she said. "What a fine sword and knapsack you have. You are something like a soldier. You ought to have as much money as you would like to carry."
"Thank you, old witch," said the soldier.
"You see that great tree there?"
said the witch, pointing at the tree beside them.
"It has a hollow within. You must climb up to the top, and then you will see a hole through which you can let yourself down into the tree. I will tie a rope round your waist so that I may be able to pull you up again."
"What shall I do down there?" asked the soldier.
"Get money," answered the witch. "Listen, when you reach the bottom of that tree, you will find yourself in a large hall. It is light there, for there are more than 300 lamps burning. You will see 3 doors which you can open. The keys are all in the locks. If you go into the first room, you will see a great chest in the middle of the floor with a dog sitting upon it. He has eyes as large as saucers, but you needn't trouble about him. I will give you my blue check apron, which you must spread out on the floor, and then go back quickly to fetch the dog and set him upon it. Take the chest and take as much money as you like. It is copper there. If you would rather have silver, you must go into the next room, where there is a dog with eyes as large as mill wheels. But don't take any notice of him, just set him upon my apron and help yourself to the money. Though, if you prefer gold, you can get that too, if you go into the third room as much as you like to carry. But that dog stands guard on the chest, has eyes as round as the large Tower of Copenhagen. He is a savage dog, I can tell you, but you needn't be afraid of him either. Only put him on my apron and he won't touch you. And then you can take out of the chest as much gold as you like."
"Come, this is not bad," said the soldier. "But what am I to give you, old witch? For surely you're not doing this for nothing."
"Yes, I am," replied the witch. "Not a single farthing will I take. For me you shall bring nothing but an old tinder-box which my grandmother forgot last time she was down there."
"Well, tie the rope around my waist," said the soldier.
"Here it is," said the witch, "and here is my blue check apron."
Then the soldier climbed up the tree and let himself down to the hole, and found himself standing, as the witch had said, underground in a large hall, where there were 300 lamps burning. Well, he opened the first door. Ugh, there sat a dog with eyes as big as saucers, just glaring at him. "You are a fine fellow," said the soldier, and put him on the witch's apron, and took as much copper as his pockets could hold. Then he shut up the chest and put the dog on it again. And he went to the second room. Sure enough, there was a dog with eyes as large as mill wheels. "You had better not look at me so hard," said the soldier. "Your eyes will come out of their sockets." And then he set the dog on the apron, which he saw all the silver in the chest. He threw away the copper he had taken, and filled his pockets and knapsack with nothing but silver. And then he went to the third room. Horrors! The dog there had 2 eyes, each as large as a rounded tower in Copenhagen, spinning around in his head like wheels. "Good evening," said the soldier, and saluted, for he had never seen a dog quite like this before. When he examined him more closely, he thought to himself, "Now then, I've had enough of this." But put him down on the floor, and he opened the chest. Heavens, what a heap of gold he found there. With all that, he could buy up a whole town, and all the sugar pigs, and tin soldiers, whips, rocking horses, and all the world. Now he threw away all the silver in which his pockets had filled in knapsack, and filled them with the gold instead. Yes, all his pockets, his knapsack, cap, boots even, so that he could hardly even walk. Now he was rich indeed. He put the dog back upon the chest and shut the door, then called up to the witch. "Now pull me up again, old witch."
"Have you got the Tinder-Box?"
asked the witch. "Botheration," he said. "I'd clean forgotten it." And then he went back and fetched it. The witch pulled him up, and there he stood again on the high road, with pockets, knapsack, cap, and boots filled with gold. "What about the Tinder-Box?" asked the soldier.
"That doesn't matter to you," replied the witch. "You've got your money. Give me the Tinder-Box."
"We'll see," said the soldier. "Tell me at once what you want with it, or I'll draw my sword and cut off your head."
"No!"
screamed the witch. The soldier immediately cut off her head, and that was the end of her. But he tied up all his gold in her apron and slung it like a bundle over her shoulder. Then he put the Tinder-Box in his pocket and set off towards town. It was a splendid town. He turned into the finest inn and ordered the best chamber and his favorite dinner, for now that he had so much money, he really was rich. It certainly occurred to the servant who had to clean his boots that they were astonishingly old boots for such a rich lord, but that was because he had not yet bought new ones. The next day he appeared in respectable boots and fine clothes. Now, instead of a common soldier, he had become a noble lord, and the people told him about all the grand doings in the town, and the king, and what a beautiful princess his daughter was. "How can one get to see her?" asked the soldier. "She is never to be seen at all," they said. "She lives in a great copper castle, surrounded by many walls and towers. No one except the king may go in and out, for he has prophesied that she will marry a common soldier, and that the king cannot submit to that." "I should very much like to see her," thought the soldier, but he could not get permission. Now he lived very gaily, went to the theater, drove to the king's garden, gave the poor a great deal of money, which wasn't very nice of him, and he had experienced in former times how hard it was to not have a farthing in the world. Now that he was rich and wore fine clothes and made many friends who said that he was an excellent man and a real nobleman, and the soldier liked that. But as he was always spending money and never made any more, at last came the day where he had nothing left but 2 shillings, and he had to leave the beautiful rooms in which he had been living and go into the attic under the roof, and clean his own boots,
and mend them with his own darning needle. None of his friends came to visit him there, for there were all too many stairs to climb. It was a dark evening, and he could not see even to buy a light. All at once it flashed across that there was a little end of the Tinder-Box, which he had taken from the hollow tree in which the witch had helped him down. He found the box with a tinder in it, and he was just kindling a light, and it struck a spark out of the Tinder-Box. The door burst open, and the dog with eyes as large as saucers, which had been down in the tree, stood before him and said, "What is my lord command?" "What's the meaning of this?" exclaimed the soldier. "This is a pretty kind of tinderbox. If I can get whatever I want like this, give me the money," he cried. And the dog, and hey, presto, he was off and back again, holding a great purse full of money in his mouth. Now the soldier knew what a capital tinderbox this was. If he rubbed once, the dog that sat in the chest of copper appeared. If he rubbed twice, there came the dog that watched over the silver chests. If he rubbed 3 times, the one that guarded the gold appeared. Now the soldier went down against the beautiful rooms and appeared once more in splendid clothes. All his friends immediately recognized him and paid him great court. One day he thought to himself, "It's very strange that no one can get to see the princess. They all say she's very pretty, but what's the use of that if she has to sit forever in a copper castle with all the towers? Can I not manage to see her somehow? Where's my tinderbox?" And so he struck a spark, and presto, there came the dog with eyes as large as saucers. "It's the middle of the night, I know," said the soldier, "but I should very much like to see the princess for a moment." The dog was already outside the door, and before the soldier could look round, he came in with the princess. She was lying asleep on the dog's back, and was so beautiful that anyone could see that she was a real princess. The soldier could not refrain from kissing her. He was such a thorough soldier. Then he ran the dog back to the princess, and when it was morning, the king and queen were drinking tea. The princess said that the night before she had such a strange dream about a dog and a soldier. She had ridden on the dog's back, and the soldier had kissed her. "That's certainly a fine story," said the queen. But the next night, one of the ladies-in-waiting was to watch the princess's bed, to see if it was only a dream, or if it really happened. The soldier had an overpowering longing to see the princess again, so the dog came in the middle of the night and fetched her, running as fast as he could. But the lady-in-waiting swiped on her rubber India shoes and followed them. And when she saw them disappear into a large house, she thought to herself, "Now I know where it is." And she made a great cross on the door with a piece of chalk. Then she went home and lay down, and the dog came back also, with the princess. But when he saw the cross had been made on the door of the house where the soldier lived, he also took a piece of chalk and made crosses on all the doors in town. And that was pretty clever, for now the lady-in-waiting could not find the right house, as there were crosses everywhere. Early the next morning, the king, queen, ladies-in-waiting, and officers came out to see where the princess had been. "Well, there it is," said the king, when he saw the first door with a cross on it. "No, there it is, my dear," said the queen, when she likewise saw a door with a cross. "But here's one, and there's another," they all exclaimed, whether they looked across on the door. Then they realized that the sign would not help them at all. But the queen was an extremely clever woman who could do a great deal more than just drive a coach. She took her great golden scissors and cut up a piece of silk and made a pretty little bag of it. Then she filled with the finest buckwheat grains and tied it around the princess's neck. This done, she cut a little hole in the bag so that the grains would be strewn the whole road wherever the princess went. And the night the dog came again, he took the princess on his back and ran away with her to the soldier, who was very much in love with her, and would have liked to have been a prince, so that he might have had her for his wife.
The dog did not notice how the grains were strewn right from the castle to the soldier's window, where he ran up to the wall with the princess. In the morning, the king and queen saw plainly where their daughter had been, and they took the soldier and put him in prison. There he sat. Oh, how dark and dull it was in there. And they told him, "Tomorrow you have to be hanged." Hearing that, they did not exactly cheer him up any, and he had left his tinderbox back at the inn. The next morning he could see through the iron grating in front of his little window how the people were hurrying out of town to see him hanged. He heard the drums and saw the soldiers marching. All the people were running to and fro. Just below his window was a shoemaker's apprentice, with leather apron and shoes, who was skipping along so merrily that one of his shoes flew off and fell against the wall, just where the soldier was sitting peeping through the iron grate. "Oh, shoemaker's boy, you needn't be in such a hurry," said the soldier to him. "There's nothing going on until I arrive, but if you'll run back to the house where I lived and fetch me my tinder-box, I will give you 4 shillings, but you must put your best foot forward." The shoemaker's boy was very willing to earn 4 shillings, and fetched the tinderbox and gave it to the soldier, and yes, now you shall hear. Outside the town, a great scaffold had been erected, and all around, standing were the soldiers, the hundreds of thousands of people. The king and queen were sitting in the magnificent throne opposite the judges and the whole council. Because a hanging really is a community event. The soldier was already standing on top of the ladder, but when they wanted to put a rope around his neck, it said that the fulfillment of one innocent request was always granted to a poor criminal before he underwent his punishment. So he would like so much to smoke a small pipe of tobacco. It would be his last pipe in the world, after all. The king could not refuse him this, and he took out his tinderbox and rubbed it twice, and then 3 times. Lo and behold, there stood all 3 dogs. The one with eyes as large as saucers, the one with eyes as large as mill wheels, and the third with eyes as large, round tower as Copenhagen. "Help me out now, so that I will not be hanged," cried the soldier. And thereupon the dogs fell upon the judges, the whole council, and seized some by the legs, others by the noses, and threw them so high in the air that they fell down and smashed into pieces. "I won't stand this," said the king, but the largest dog seized him too, and the queen as well, and threw them up after the others. This frightened the soldiers, and the people cried, "Good soldier, you shall be our king, and marry the beautiful princess." Then they put the soldier into the king's coach, and the 3 dogs danced in front, crying hurrah! And boys whistled, and soldiers presented arms. The princess came out of the copper castle and became queen, and that pleased her very much. The wedding festivities lasted for 8 days, and the dogs sat at the table and made eyes at everyone. Yeah. Guilty being a problem? Nah, he'd never be guilty of that. I wouldn't really think the dogs would just go around on a killing spree, but apparently they did. throwing people up into the air. And then we're landing, they're crashing into pieces. They slaughtered the entire council of the kingdom, the king and queen. The soldiers just went, okay, screw this, I'm out. Hail the new king. So it's not a strange woman lying around in ponds distributing swords. It's strange dogs running around the capital and killing people. You know, Tinder-Box is really just, you know, a matchbox. But why did they have to say that the woman was wearing Andy rubber-soled shoes? Feed your dog people food. Ugh. Never come between a soldier and his dog. Canines of mass destruction. So the third dog, they were really specific about his eye size. As big as the clocks in a tower in Copenhagen. And just thinking about the dog that had the eyes the size of millstones. Those are anywhere from 2 feet to 3 feet in diameter, depending on the size of the mill, I suppose. Because they've talked about using millstones to cap wells. So, they'd be pretty good sized. But trying to picture a dog that has eyes as big as a tower clock, that'd be crazy. And I wonder why I used that specific clock. Other than to elaborate on the fact that this was in Denmark. I think Copenhagen's in Denmark. Yeah. Anyway, I might be able to get one more story tonight, which will be fine. That gives me a much longer story to start off next week with. But this next one's an Icelandic story. The Witch and the Stone Boat. There were once a king and a queen, and they had a son called Sigurd, who was very strong and active, and good-looking. When the king came to be bowed down with the weight of the years, he spoke to his son, and said that now it is time for him to look out for a fitting match for himself. For he did not know how long he might last now, and he would like to see him married before he died. Sigurd was not adverse to this, and asked his father where he thought it was best to look for a wife. The king answered that in a certain country there was a king who had a beautiful daughter, and he thought it would be most desirable if Sigurd could get her. So the two parted ways, and Sigurd prepared for the journey, and went to where his father had directed him. He came to the king and asked the daughter's hand, which he already granted him, and on only the condition that he should remain there as long as he could, for the king himself was not strong and not very able to govern his kingdom. Sigurd accepted this condition, but added that he would have to get leave to go home again to his own country when he heard news of his father's death. After that, Sigurd married the princess and helped his father-in-law to govern the kingdom. He and the princess loved each other dearly, and after a year, a son came to them, who was 2 years old when word came to Sigurd that his father was dead. Sigurd now prepared to return home with his wife and child, and went on board ship to go to sea. They had sailed for several days when a breeze suddenly fell, and there came a dead calm, at a time when they only needed 1 day's voyage to reach home. Sigurd and his queen were 1 day on deck, and most of the others on the ship had fallen asleep. There they sat and talked a while, and had their little son along with them. After a time, Sigurd became so heavy with sleep that he could no longer keep awake, so he went below to lay down, leaving the queen alone on deck, playing with her son. A good while after Sigurd had gone down below, the queen saw something black on the sea, which seemed to be getting nearer. As it approached, she could make out that it was a boat, and could see the figure of someone sitting in it and rowing. At last the boat came along beside the ship, and now the queen saw that it was a stone boat, out of which there came up on board the ship a fearfully ugly witch. The queen was more frightened than words can describe, and could neither speak nor word nor move from her place as to awaken the king or the sailors. The witch came right up to the queen and took the child from her and laid it on the deck. And then she took the queen and stripped her of all her fine clothes, which she proceeded to put on herself, and looked then like a human being. Last of all, she took the queen and put her into the boat, and said,
"This spell I lay upon you, that you slacken not your course until you come to my brother in the underworld."
The queen sat stunned and motionless, but the boat at once shot away with the ship front. Before long, she was out of sight. When the boat could no longer be seen, the child began to cry, and though the witch tried to quiet it, she could not manage it. So she went below to where the king was sleeping with the child on her arm, and awakened him, scolding him for leaving them alone on the deck, while he and all the crew were asleep. It was great carelessness of him, she said, to leave no one to watch the ship with her. Sigurd was greatly surprised to hear his queen scold him so much, for she had never said an angry word to him before. But he thought it was quite excusable in this case, and tried to quiet the child along with her, but it was no use. Then he went and wakened the soldiers and bade them to hoist the sails, for the breeze had sprung up, and was blowing straight for the harbor. They soon reached the land which Sigurd was to rule over, and found all the people sorrowful for the old king's death, but they became glad when they got Sigurd back to the court, and made him king over them. The king's son, however, hardly stopped crying from the time he had been taken from his mother on the deck of the ship, although he had always been such a good child before. So at last the king had to get a nurse for him, one of the maids of the court. As soon as the child got into her charge, he stopped crying, and behaved well as before. After the sea voyage, it seemed to the king that the queen had altered very much in many ways, but not for the better. He thought her much more haughty and stubborn, and difficult to deal with than she had been used to. Before long, the others began to notice this as well as the king. In the court there were 2 young fellows, one 18 years old and the other 19, who were very fond of playing chess. They often sat long inside playing at it. The room was next to the queen's, and often during the day they heard the queen talking. One day they paid more attention than usual when they heard her talk, and they put their ears close to a crack in the wall between the rooms, and heard the queen say quite plainly,
"When I yawn a little, then I am a nice little maiden. When I yawn halfway, then I am half a troll. And when I yawn fully, I am a troll altogether."
As she said this, she yawned tremendously, and in a moment had put on the appearance of a fearfully ugly troll. Then there came up through the floor of the room a three-headed giant with a trough full of meat, who saluted her as his sister, and set down the trough before her. She began to eat out of it and never stopped until she had finished it. The young fellows saw this all going on, but did not hear the two of them say anything to each other. They were astonished at how greatly the queen devoured the meat, and how much she ate of it, and were no longer surprised that she took so little when she sat down at the king with the table. As soon as she had finished it, the giant disappeared with the trough by the same way he had come in, and the queen returned to her human shape. Now we must go back to the king's son, after he had been so put in charge of the nurse. One evening, after she had lit a candle and was holding the child, several planks sprang up from the floor of the room, and out of the opening came a beautiful woman dressed in white, with an iron belt around her waist, to which was fastened an iron chain that went down into the ground. The woman came up to the nurse and took the child from her and pressed it to her breasts. Then she gave it back to the nurse and returned the same way she had come, and the floor closed back over her again. Although the woman had not spoken a single word to her, the nurse was very much frightened, but told no one about it. The next evening, the same thing happened again, just as before, but as the woman was going away, she said in a sad tone, "Two are gone, only one is left." And then she disappeared as before. The nurse was still more frightened when she heard the woman say this, and thought that perhaps some danger was hanging over the child, though she had no ill opinion of the unknown woman, who, indeed, had behaved towards the child as if it were her own. The most mysterious thing was the woman saying, "Only one is left." But the nurse guessed that this must mean that only one day was left, since she was come for 2 days already. At last the nurse made up her mind to go to the king and told him the whole story, and asked him to present in person the next day about the time that the woman usually came. The king promised to do so, and came to the nurse's room a little before the time and sat down on a chair with his sword drawn in his hand. Soon after, the planks in the floor came up, and the woman came up, dressed in white, with the iron belt and chain. The king saw at once that it was his own queen, and immediately hewed asunder the iron chain that was fastened to the belt, and was followed by such noises and crashings down in the earth that all the king's palace shook, so that no one expected anything else than to see every bit of it shaken to pieces. At last, however, the noises and shaking stopped, and they began to come to themselves again. The king and queen embraced each other, and she told him the whole story, how the witch came to the ship when they were all asleep and sent her off in the boat. After she had gone so far she could not see the ship, she sailed on through the darkness until she landed beside a three-headed giant. The giant wished her to marry him, but she refused, whereupon he shut her up by herself, and told her she would never get free until she consented. After a time she began to plan how to get her freedom, and at last she told him that she would consent if he would allow her to visit her son on Earth 3 days on end. This he had agreed to, but put her on this iron belt and chain, the other end of which was always fastened around his own waist, and the great noises that were heard when the king cut the chains must have been caused by the giants falling down the underground passage when the chain gave away so suddenly. The giant's dwelling, indeed, was right under the palace, and the terrible shakings must have been caused by him and his death throes. The king now understood why the queen he had had for some time past had been so ill-tempered. He had once had a sack drawn over her head and made her to be stoned to death, and after that torn to pieces by untamed horses. The two young fellows also told now what they had heard and seen in the queen's room, for before this they had been afraid to say anything about it on account of the queen's powers. The real queen was now restored to all her dignity and was beloved by all. The nurse was married to a nobleman, and the king and queen gave her splendid presents. Yeah. You can tell it's Icelandic by the names they used, because that story has been done by several people before. Because I read a hell of a lot of stories and I've seen it before. But anyway, there's only 20 minutes left and I don't think I'd get very far into the next story, because it is a longer story. So I will start next week with Thumbelina. Because it is definitely a longer story. There are only 6 more stories left in this book. And I know some of them are not very long. We've got Thumbelina, the Nightingale, Hermod and Hadvor, the Steadfast Tin Soldier, Blockhead Hans, and Story About a Darning Needle. But those I'll save until next week. And then it will be September. And then I might switch over to a creepy fairy tale book. Just for the hell of it. Thank you everyone for coming in. Let's see who we can find to raid. Okay. Let's see, who's on? Let's see, Waste is still going. I was originally going to raid Evie, but Evie's apparently not so long ago raided into Dusk and Extreme. Ouch. I need to stretch. Does anyone have a suggestion? Because I'm always open for suggestions. Hello, model. Okay. My model has gone unresponsive. Oh, that just means it's definitely time to end the stream. Porcelain Maid? Don't think I've rated them before. Let's see what they're doing. I could have sworn I was following them. Why do I not see it on my list? Nope, wait. Man, they're doing a party stream right now. I'm gonna go ahead and switch my ending screen because frozen model always bothers me. Besides, I like this one anyway. I don't know why my model froze. I don't know if I can read them. Let me try. Nope. I always wonder if people have limits on the raid size. Oh, I can raid. Cool. So, I guess we'll raid porcelain made. So, subscriber raid message, follower raid message. So I hope everyone has a great night, and I'll see you over there. I know.